Part 1. Basic philosophy and thoughts on brilliant love. The ordinary romantic love relationship. Quote, Hey, hey Cupid, don't make me stupid. Refrain of a song the author composed in his teenage years.
You see him, her, sometime, somewhere. All of a sudden she appears, and an astonishing interest in each other develops. I find it helpful in this context to quote the 5 arrows of Cupid, the god of mundane love. The first arrow in Sanskrit is Maranaha. It unconsciously creates an exclusive connection with the beloved person and excludes any other possible match as far as the magic of attraction is concerned. One perceives things, events, and other people only in relation to the chosen one. In this way, one becomes unconscious about other realities. The second arrow is called Stambhanaha, paralysis. Those struck by this arrow might behave foolishly or can't get some things done in front of their lover, which normally gets easy out of hand for them. The lover is at a loss for words. He or she stands transfixed, even paralyzed, before the person they adore. Sometimes one throws oneself on the bed at home, with deep sighs and even heart pain, completely battered. The world stands still because everything revolves around the beloved. Then you desperately want to turn off the thought carousel, somehow shut it down, but every attempt at manipulation seems in vain. In the worst case, nothing works anymore. You're as if erased. The third arrow, Irimbanaha, yawning or sighing or groaning, when nothing goes right for the person in love, so that she is paralyzed and many tasks are done unconcentrated or even remain undone. When there is some kind of stagnation and blocked internal and external progresses, then you often groan. It's terrible. It's enough to drive you to despair. Nothing seems to work like usual. At this point, you often turn to one of your best friends for advice or just to put your heart out. You can no longer bear the burden alone and simply have to confide in someone. There simply have to be initiates, and one shares oneself to bring relief to the heart. Their entire existence is perceived as if in a kind of daydream. The famous saying, "You're floating in seventh heaven," may have been attributed to someone struck by this arrow. The lover is surrounded by a veil and seems to have stepped away from normal everyday life, remaining in their ecstatic if happy or suicidal and crazy perception if unhappy. But it goes even further. Arrow number 4, Soshanaha. One mackles out, one loses weight. There is no real appetite anymore. The affected person then appears to be emaciated. Although they may be consuming less food than usual, they may still appear energetic. Yes, they could uproot trees, if happily in love, but if the beloved person does not reciprocate in the desired way, and obstacles are placed in the lover's way, or they are blocked in any other way, exhaustion, weakness, and ultimately wailing arise. I lived in ashrams, meaning temple communities, for a long time. There, we noticed that nuns or monks who had been caught suddenly lost weight and appeared emaciated. This kind of loss of appetite may be something some people remember from their teenage days. Meals are simply skipped. Perhaps they find themselves slowed down, completely emaciated. The fifth and final arrow brings the natural consequence of all the previous ones. On Madanaha, it gets unbearable. Completely insane, it's enough to drive you somehow crazy. In this connection, I would like to recount an ancient story that I heard from my spiritual teacher. It is recorded in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a more than 5,000-year-old Sanskrit classic for transcendentalists. In the stories and tales of the Bhagavatam, the most sobering incidents are often recounted, written specifically for elevation above worldly illusion and enlightenment into spiritual reality. One of the countless examples of how Maya, the personified illusory energy of God, carries a worldly romance to its peak, is wonderfully enacted there with the appearance of Urvasi, a celestial beauty with whom a wealthy monarch named Purava falls in love. The entire drama unfolds when the famous dancing girl Urvasi, originally from the heavenly planets, is expelled for her provocative behavior and cursed to spend some time in the middle planetary system, that is, on Earth. Vedic texts teach that every universe is full of life. Nothing is empty. It describes the existence of planets higher than Earth. Fascinating for astronomers, precise measurements in kilometers or miles are given, which are consistent with recent research findings. There it is further reported: men and women are not only far more beautiful than on Earth, but also live much longer. Considering that angelic beings and other heavenly figures have been sighted before, during, and after Christ's birth, indeed up to the present day by psychic and mystically open individuals, this information is not so far-fetched. It's astonishing how these Vedic traditions once again agree in many details with the various other sightings. For example, it is reported how these celestial beauties never touched the ground with their feet. They always hovered a few centimeters above the Earth's surface. As I read this, I thought of the fashion industry, which copies this phenomenon by designing high-heeled shoes for young women, which is still considered attractive and erotic in today's society. Furthermore, Urvasi had brought 2 cuddly toys from the heavenly spheres with her, 2 beautiful white lambs, which she considered her most beloved pets, and which she would not want to be without her under any circumstances. We know this too, because it is repeatedly observed how particularly racy women are depicted with 2 animals, preferably leopards or 2 tigers, painted or photographed, left and right. There are numerous such images. Be that as it may, so she came to our planet and met the ill-fated King Pururava, who naturally fell completely under her spell, fell head over heels in love with her, and struck by all the arrows of the love god, sank down when he saw the unearthly beauty of Urvasi. Immediately, the desire to possess and enjoy this woman arose in his heart, which is why he asked for her hand, because she had committed a crime in heaven, and knew that, due to her curse, she would not be allowed to return so soon. She agreed to the pining Pururava. She, however, set 3 conditions for him. First, I will only eat things that have been prepared in pure butterfat, ghee, meaning fatty, oily, or juicy foods do not cause digestive problems in the heavenly spheres. It is reported how heavenly places are disease and aging-free zones. Pain and even death are not experienced there nearly as tragically and miserably as on Earth. Many religions are therefore captivated by the descriptions and revelations of the heavenly planets, in which paradisiacal conditions are described in that one can indulge in the most delicious foods, intoxicating drinks, such as the almost immortal making soma drink, and many other indulgences without having to worry about the slightest negative side effects. Another expression of a refined lifestyle, which sets one apart from earthly realms, is: the inhabitants of the higher planets do not slaughter, and consequently do not eat animals. They are therefore vegetarian. The second condition that Urvasi set for Pururava was that he had to commit to caring for her 2 lambs as if they were his own children. The third condition, finally, probably also stems from the somewhat more cultured customs on the heavenly planets. She asked him never to show himself naked in front of her unless they were to have intimate intercourse. Pururava, shot by the arrows of love, naturally immediately accepted the offer without a realistic assessment of his situation, meaning he was no longer aware of his actual realistic possibilities. Also, this is typical. We've already mentioned it. The popular saying goes, "You are blind out of love, or walking above the clouds." Apart from that, an earthly beauty can't even come close to matching a divine apsara, Sanskrit term for a celestial dancer or angelic figure. An indescribably intoxicating fragrance emanates from the bodies of these women without them ever using any kind of perfume. There is no sweat or other foul-smelling secretions. Not even a shadow is cast by a celestial person. Nor will their graceful features appear tense and or stressed in any way. Nor is their mood ever sad or melancholic. The corners of their mouths are adorned with a perpetual sweet, lovely smile. They never lose their composure or lose their inner balance, and they are thoroughly peaceful and enthusiastic. It's unimaginable how beautifully shaped the body of the noble celebrity Urvasi was. Also, every man would have gone mad in her presence, and would have gone completely out of his mind just to enjoy this woman. Considering that there is no beauty normally on the earth planet, which could be comparable with this beauty of heavenly Urvasi. It is no wonder that Pururava became absolutely attached to her. Unaware of anything else, he surrendered to sensual pleasure and lived overwhelmed by his amorous feelings in the temporary fairy tale castle of his romance. The inevitable had to happen. After several years, the devatas, meaning the demigods, were of the opinion that Urvasi's curse had now expired, and her punishment had been served. Agreeing that the earthly period had to be ended, they decided to stage an intervention to end Urvasi's stay in the middle planetary system. This involved sending two Gandharvas, Sanskrit name for angelic beings, to Earth, with the task of kidnapping Urvasi's two lambs. When Urvasi awoke in the middle of the night and realized that her white lamb pets were no longer with her, she cried out in panic, "You eunuch! How is it possible that in the company of a great king as powerful as you, dear Pururava, my two lambs could have been stolen?" Pururava was torn from his deepest dreams. What? The lambs are gone? He quickly opened the window and witnessed the two heavenly thieves disappearing over the horizon with their loot. "Act!" Urvasi commanded, and so the king immediately armed himself with a sword and ran outside to give chase. That was exactly what the devatas wanted. In this dramatic moment, when Pururava ran stark naked into the darkness, they only needed to let him get close enough. As soon as the two angelic beings were sure that he had nowhere to hide, they let their heavenly bodies, endowed with all mystical energies, illuminate the surrounding area so brightly that the entire landscape was overflooded with light for several kilometers, and released the two lambs. When Pururava returned with his sword and the two lambs, Urvasi delivered her shocking verdict. "I thank you for my lambs. You have heroically reclaimed them. However, I must immediately bid you farewell, because you have unfortunately broken our third agreement. Do you remember? You promised me never to show yourself naked in front of me unless we were intimate.